A 15% cap on indirect spending at the National Institutes of Health is among the proposed cuts prompted by the Trump administration. Spectrum News national health reporter Aaron Billups joins us now with more on what these cuts may actually mean. So, Aaron, this is a proposed cap on facilities, administrative spending, but you're hearing this is actually going to have a real direct impact on local communities as well.
Yeah, if they're allowed to go through with those cuts, Shannon, about 30% of NIH grant awards covers these so-called indirect costs. That's money spent to make sure research labs are complying with biosafety standards, keeping the HVAC running and the support staff paid. Essentially, it pays to keep the lights on. Under the new administration, there may soon be a 15% cap on spending in those areas. Guidance from NIH Acting Director Matthew Mamoli says it's difficult for the agency to keep close tabs on indirect costs, which made up about $9 billion of the $35 billion spent on grants in 2023. The NIH saying that several institutions get research done with lower indirect costs. The guidance says there must be better use of taxpayer dollars. But over 20 attorneys general and coalitions of research institutions have filed suit against the cap, claiming the way to determine indirect costs for research is highly regulated and based on the specific needs of each project and institution. The cost of doing business in one area may be higher than in doing business in another area. A judge has granted an injunction blocking the cap for now, but what could the impact of this spending cap be in our communities? I spoke with Jonathan Teyan, CEO of the Associated Medical Schools of New York. New York receives one of the highest amounts of NIH grant awards, second only to California. He says the cap amounts to a cut that would have far-reaching impacts.
If these cuts are actually implemented, the scale is so large, it's impossible for our medical schools or any other NIH grant recipient to then shift to some other funding source to make up those shortfalls. And in the short term, it almost certainly will mean we're doing less science. It'll almost certainly mean that labs will have to close and that scientists and support staff and maintenance folks who support all of this work will be laid off.
And with these cuts looming, there has already been a slowdown in research. A number of institutions have put hiring freezes in place, anticipating the fallout of this cap on spending.
So what is the trickle-down effect? Will New Yorkers actually feel this when it comes to access to new medical treatments?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, New York is really a leader in terms of clinical trials. We have such diverse population here, so it's a very desirable place to do clinical trials. If that science isn't happening, that means New Yorkers locally won't have access to cutting-edge medical treatments potentially, or not as much access to these sorts of things. It also means that, there's less opportunities for aspiring scientists to get their hands dirty, to learn. So there are far-reaching impacts.
And like you said, already a slowdown in research. I would imagine that would impact the economy and lead to just fewer people getting involved in this field in general or getting those jobs.
Yeah, so New York gets about $3.5 billion in NIH funding. That was in 2024. It supports about 17,000 jobs directly, about 30,000 overall, and is responsible for about $8.5 billion in economic activity for New York. So if you cap that, it's going to hurt substantially. You will be able to feel it in our local economy here in New York.
Aaron Billups, thanks for joining us.